Welcome to the Pro-2-Pro podcast, where we explore the stories and strategies of successful entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Keith Hanenian, and in each episode, I'll be sitting down with a different guest to learn about their journey, their challenges, and their insights into building a successful business. As a lawyer who works with industry leaders, I've seen firsthand the passion and drive that it takes to turn an idea into a thriving enterprise. And in this podcast, I want to share those stories with you, our viewers and listeners. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or just someone who loves a good success story, you'll find something to inspire and inform you in each episode. So sit back, relax, and join us as we dive into the world of entrepreneurship and discover the insights that can help you succeed in your own business. Welcome everybody to a special edition of Pro-2-Pro. I am here in the UK and we are entering the Wise Manor estate. My good friend and next guest, Elliot Wise. Elliot is a serial entrepreneur, an incredible e-commerce expert who was instrumental in bridging the gap for me because he knows he was born in a time period in which the internet had just started up and is able to bridge the gap for successful business people like myself who needed help. He was instrumental in starting the podcast, and we're looking forward to talking with him today on Pro-2-Pro. Oh, I hear something. I thought I heard something. Looks like he's arrived.
Welcome to England.
Love it.
Hey Keith, how you doing?
Great, thank you for having me.
After you, fine sir. Welcome to the Wise Manor.
Welcome everybody to a special edition of Pro-2-Pro. We are here live in Sussex, England, and I am here with my close friend, Elliot Wise, in his home, and we're filming a special edition of our podcast of Pro-2-Pro because Elliot was instrumental in getting me to start this podcast to begin with, and elicited a passion out of me to do the podcast, and he falls dead in line to what we're doing for the podcast as talking about, entrepreneurship, and businesses, because he is a serial entrepreneur and owns multiple businesses as part of his Limitless world. Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here in your home.
Well, thank you for making the effort for coming over all the way over from over the pond.
Yes.
To do the podcast.
Over the pond to do the podcast. I always like to start when I talk to my guests on the podcast about, formative years, growing up, early years, and how the hell you were able to get to where you are now. And most people see you in real time now, but have no idea how you may have gotten to this particular point in your life. Most of my guests seem to have had influences growing up, unbeknownst to them, that kind of led them in a direction of independence and the desire to become an independent business owner. So for you and for the people who are listening and watching, tell us a little bit about how you were raised, growing up when you were younger, your family life, your structure. How was that for you?
Okay, well, firstly, thank you for having me on your podcast. And I'll dive straight back in. I'll give you a quick summary so we're not here all day. So up until 9, parents were married. Brother 3 years younger than me. Parents divorced. I moved in with my brother, with my mum. It wasn't a messy divorce, wasn't a bad divorce at all, just was an amicable divorce. Parents weren't happy. I then grew up pretty much seeing my dad maybe once every 2 weeks. So quite a lot of influence from my mother. I was a very oddball child in that I loved a lot of different things in life. I was very competitive, loved sports, loved art, loved to learn. And we weren't poor, but we weren't rich either. I never ever wanted for food. I'm not one of these people that have had a bad upbringing or, come back from bad roots. My mum gave me everything she possibly could. I never wanted for a roof over my head and I never wanted for food. I didn't feel poor as a kid. I do realize now that we didn't have a lot of money, but it wasn't brassic. I very quickly realized at the age of 13 that I wanted more from life. And this is where I'm a very big oddball in the family and in general. I set up my own e-commerce business at 13.
13 years old.
Yeah, so it was a web design business at 13. It was a combination of I've always been very good at seeing the future. That's one thing I've always been good at. And I realized that I was around the birth of like dial-up the internet. So I was blessed with the generation I was born in. I was one of the ones that saw it before the internet was here, and I was one of the ones that lived through the birth of it. And I remember AOL dial-up, the internet used to connect. You used to knock the phone off and your mum would be screaming, "What, Elliot, you on the internet again?" Like, yeah. And I suddenly realized at a very early age, at 13, that everyone's gonna need they're gonna need a website. They're gonna need a website. And I don't want to do a paper round. I don't want to work for anyone else. I knew that from day dot. I'm not working for anyone else. So I'm gonna build websites because everyone's gonna want one. So my dad actually had a small manufacturing company, still does. He's done the same thing all his life. They make wooden switches and sockets, of all things, wiring accessories that turns lights on and off, wooden ones. And so from that point of view, I saw that you could be an entrepreneur, you could run your own business, and there was money to be made there. So I was fortunate in that. And I suddenly realized that, okay, I'm going to set up my business. I spoke to him and said, what do I need to do to get my business to run? He said, well, you need an accountant, and he said, register your business. I was like, okay, let's do that. And then I said, right, okay, now I've got my web design business, because I basically made my first little website for myself. I was like, I'm pretty confident I can make one. I made it on a Microsoft front page, it was called at the time, which then changed to Dreamweaver and everything else. I learned to code. I bought C++ for dummies. I learned JavaScript. I learned PHP, CSS in my bedroom. And I said, right, who the hell can I get to buy my website? So then I asked my dad, do you know anyone that's got any businesses, this and the other? Ended up being like a family relative, who still are a client to this day, by the way.
Wow.
And I built their first website. I think I made £250 actually. It took me about 3 months to build the bloody thing. And I was like, this is it. I'm done. I'm gonna start making websites. That's what I did. So through secondary school, I was building websites for people, coding. I then started to pull all the people in my classes around me to start doing different things. So I needed a graphic designer, I needed an animator, I needed someone to help me out a bit. So I said, I'd get projects in, maybe like £300 project, a £300 website, and I'd be like, right, they didn't know what I was getting from it. I said, right, I need you to learn Photoshop, I need you to learn this. And then I got them all, I managed to rally everyone in the classes to start building parts of the projects we were working on, and then I would sell the project at the end, and I was already overseeing people and putting them in. Incidentally, actually, I found out the other day, my friend that I first did it with, Jamie, he's had graphic design work from Apple. He carried on doing it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's still building, he's worked for massive corporations in London, and his mum actually met my mum and said, yeah, Jamie's like doing really well. He's like he works for Spotify, he does some from their interface, the UX. So that all started, and I had another guy that was helping me with, we got into e-commerce.
So this idea conceptually for you, and you're obviously showing at an early age, you're unusually laser focused at an early age to do something, and it appears that you had some influence from your family, i.e. your dad, to kind of help you, or at least support you in this endeavor. Was it something that you think he did out of a desire for you to become independent at a younger age, learn different things at a younger age, or did he do it because he felt that maybe you weren't really so interested in school, and this would be something to help you from a confidence perspective? Like, how did the dynamics work where you were able to work with your dad?
My dad loves business, and he has a good business mind. He just was never able to take risks, which as part of being an entrepreneur, you have to be able to take risks, and you have to be able to push the boundaries, and you have to have certain key elements to be. I've since figured out to become a really successful entrepreneur, which he didn't necessarily have those traits. But he loved business, so was always happy to talk to me about business. One thing that I've had from my parents that I attribute a lot of my success to is that I had the raw elements, and they gave me the freedom. This is going to be very contrary to what a lot of people believe, and a lot of other cultures don't do this. They basically gave me free reins to pursue anything that I was happy doing and encouraged me in that. They didn't have a preconceived notion of what they wanted me to do. They said, as long as you're happy, as long as you're polite, as long as you're respectful, we're happy. And I was never pushed and I never had any bias from my parents that I can remember feeling towards doing anything. It wasn't like, you need to be a doctor, you need to be a lawyer, you need to be good at school. I never had any of that. They didn't even push me to do my homework. If I wanted to do sports, they'd encourage me. If I wanted to do art and do sculpture, they'd encourage me.
So their particular value base was respect,
100%,
social happiness,
yes,
contentment, and it sounds that even though your dad had his own business, he wasn't driven by the dollar.
At all. I have no real materialistic drive from my parents, and they didn't try and impose that on me either. That was all came from me.
Yeah.
So they just encouraged whatever it was that I seemed to be interested in, which is a very weird dynamic, because then that just fueled. I was a parent pleaser, but they never had any benchmark or goals set for me to hit. It was, as long as I was happy, they were happy.
How did they manage you? And what I mean by that is, if you were flowing in all these directions with regard to, dealing with your friends, running this business, handling all this other stuff, were there challenges with school? Were there challenges at all with your behavior? Was there anything that, be happy, okay, Shangri-La, but was there any challenges associated with maybe decisions that you made as a youth growing up that were not right, where you had to be disciplined? How did that work? What was the dynamics of that growing up?
I never ever wanted to disappoint my parents, so I never did anything wrong. I was one of those kids that would always influence my friends if they were trying to do something bad, not to. I was probably the boring one.
Okay.
I ended up being like the head boy at school without meaning to. It was just, on paper, did everything right, and I don't know why, because if you look at my brother, raised exactly the same, didn't follow the same path as me at all. Very different people. And what I find really odd about me is that if you looked at how my parents parented me in terms of the rule book, you wouldn't get me. And it's also not how I would raise my kids now. I have 2 boys. And I don't, still to this day, quite understand how, because it was very liberal, the way I was
parented.
It
sounds like liberal. you were given really free reign.
Because they never needed to.
Yeah.
I know it sounds odd, but they never needed to, because for whatever reason, I was so focused on creating something with my life that I just knew that it wasn't worth derailing that by doing things that weren't in line with those things.
But we've shared things offline where you've played sports,
yeah.
you've done things. It's not like you were a robot focused solely on running a business at a young age, and you were in a basement or in a room just working. You have social skills to be able to put together a team at a younger age. You figured that out. Running the business, asking questions. You were obviously inquisitive, but you also developed competitiveness, maybe through sports, unbeknownst to you as well. And you did other things outside of just being this young kid who had an interest in computers and websites, right? I mean, there's things 100%. You did.
Those came later on. I'm competitive as hell. I hate losing. Still do to this day. I feel like it's a battle against everyone every day when I wake up, and I love it. So for me, I love sports. I love business because that was something I compete at. I wanted to beat the other kids in the school about how much they were earning. Like, don't get me wrong, I was a happy kid, but I was driven as hell, and I wanted to succeed. And that was what was keeping me on the rails. And I wanted to make my parents proud and also prove others wrong around me. I think that's quite a typical thing for a lot of kids. I was just able to do it possibly from an earlier age and wasn't influenced by social pressures.
It's interesting to me because when you talk about your formative years, it's like you were born and you did no wrong, but if there was any instances in which you potentially did something in which you at an early age saw the consequences of the negative behavior that put in you this desire to please immediately? Like, or were you just born and you existed and you never had any issues and you always wanted to please? And because when I think about it, like from my perspective in my life, I think growing up, I was very similar to you in that I wanted to be a parent. I was a pleaser too for my parents, and I never wanted to disappoint them. And going through life, that's kind of how I was at a younger age. And if I did, but I had instances in which I did disappoint them, and they weren't dramatic, like even in my instance with my brother. But for me, they were dramatic because it was unusual. And I had to deal with the consequence. And that even put me on more of a linear path, never to disappoint them going forward. Did you have any of those experiences that you could think of? Or were you completely in a vacuum, always focused on ensuring that your parents were pleased with you?
Honestly, I want to give you a more interesting answer. I can't think of a time when I really upset my parents or did something that made them disappointed in me that I thought, fuck, I need to change.
Yeah.
I don't have one of those. I, from 9 years old, adopted pretty much the fathering role of my brother. So I had a tremendous amount of responsibility. And because of that, from a very young age, this may come back to haunt me in life, I might have a mental breakdown or something later in life, but I took on a tremendous amount of responsibility for my mum and my brother. Not that my dad wasn't there or wasn't supportive. He was. Like he's a nice man, loving. He's a good family man. I just felt that I had to take the mantle from a very young age and that I couldn't fuck up.
So you essentially took on a parental role at a very young age.
So that shift, thinking about it, that shifted things very much for me because I felt my brother is very different to me in that he relied on me massively, and I was always ahead of my years in terms of my forward thinking and potentially the way I processed information, the way I viewed the world. He was possibly a little bit behind for his years. And as a result, he lent on me a lot, and I felt a lot of responsibility for him growing up to be able to look after him, make sure he was okay. Very odd dynamic. If you're a brother, and your brother trusts you, you're the older brother, or whatever, you're the more responsible brother, let's say in the situation, and your brother trusts you. And he trusts you so much that he would come to you with things that were potentially harmful that was happening to him. He had issues with girls, fights, drugs, things like this that came up. He told me. Now, your actual instinct is to go to your parents to console and seek advice. If I did that, I knew if I did that, I would lose the trust of my brother. And if I lost the trust of him, he wouldn't tell me these things anymore and I couldn't look after him. So I was faced with decisions throughout my teenage years of, I've got some really, really important, potentially very, like stomach churning information I've been given by my brother. I need to sort problems out. And I can't go to my parents because if I do, he will stop telling me this stuff and then he will be on his own. And I, as a kid at 13, I remember decisions like that had to be made by me. And that really shaped me because that was quite a regular thing. And I took that responsibility on. I never, ever, when possible, told anyone else. I dealt with it.
Why did you take that responsibility on? Why do you think
because
that was your responsibility?
I felt because I could that I should. There was an obligation I felt that he was my brother, I loved him, and anyone that I love, I'm the same with, that if I can help you, I will, and I should. And I felt tremendous amount of guilt if I couldn't, like deep guilt, if I wasn't able to help that person or didn't help that person knowing that I could.
So that's in part how you kind of filled your cup internally a little bit.
It did, and I think that's probably why I never really did anything that disappointed anyone, because I felt that I had to have that level of responsibility and I had to be the strong rock and provider because I had people that relied on me from a young age. And therefore I couldn't afford to go off the rails because that doesn't affect me, that affects everyone that was which was my brother at the time, and also felt a bit like my mum too.
So you kind of skipped adolescence and being a teenager and being silly, you were serious for many of your years growing up.
Yeah.
And you consciously made that decision.
Yes. And I battled with that actually, with the responsibilities of my brother. That was a big thing.
Well, I think, we've talked about it in the past, offline, you still battle with that occasionally.
More so now.
Yeah.
With more people.
With more people and more responsibilities.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting phenomenon. Let me take you to another area, because that's interesting. So you move forward in your life, and obviously you have the entrepreneurial solo mindset of carving out your own fate. Mm-hmm. How does that transcend when you go to university? How do you deal with that? Because you've already established that you probably have a stronger skill set than so many kids who are heading off to school, to college, who don't have the history that you have of being for lack of a better term, the adult in your dynamic with the family. So now you go to university, we call it college, university, wherever you go. And frankly, most kids go to college where they want to sow their oats. They want to go, go party, drink, hunt for women, hunt for men, whatever they're going to do. And sports, fraternities, whatever. But you're going in essentially like an old man. Going into university. How did you reconcile and deal with that?
So to put it in perspective, I went to university, I did economics. I went to a very good university, Southampton, and I turned up to university at 18, college, with a web design company and an e-commerce business that was doing very well. I had, not long after I started university, I bought a Porsche 911 Turbo. My company, my e-commerce company, was turning over 7 figures, doing millions a year in revenue. I wasn't earning that in profit, but I was doing 6 figures in profit at 18. So on paper, you could say I was a millionaire.
Why did you go to university?
So to answer that question, I felt that it would be because it's 3 years for me, university.
Okay.
I felt that would give me a reprieve, thinking about it now, from all the responsibility, and actually allow myself to live and grow up a little bit. Because I had been in this bubble where everything was very serious, and I thought university could be a place, and it was actually for me, not for financial gain, not for skill gain, just to allow myself to live a little bit.
Did you live off-site, or did you live...
I lived first year on campus, and then the second 2 years we were renting with some friends of mine.
So you left the house?
I left the house.
How did you handle leaving your brother?
It was hard, actually. That was really difficult because he was going through at that time, he was obviously in his late teens.
Yeah.
Really bad. So I was still checking in him a lot. I was still traveling home to make sure he was okay. But, I had to, I think, give myself some independence as well from that, which is what I did at university. And that's why I saw it. I also saw it as a bit of a backup in terms of...
In the event of?
Also, I think there was a little bit, I used to give a lot more of a shit about what people thought. It'd be nice to have a decent degree so that people didn't just think I was an uneducated arsehole.
So you thought that would provide you with a little bit of more credibility?
So there was
at
several
the time,
factors.
At least.
That was my rationale was, first and foremost, time to grow up, bit of space to actually grow the business while I'm there, have fun, grow up a little bit, break the umbilical cord for my family, and get a bit of a backup degree and learn a little bit, see if it was actually something I wanted to do.
So I know that you did very well in school, and when school was done, you had some options available to you. You were actually recruited. So share a little bit about that, what you went through.
So I had a preconceived notion that from my father, coming back to my people pleasing, my father once, when we were younger, mentioned that he saw a stockbroker had come into his factory, his warehouse, and he was a young kid, bought a blue Porsche. It's funny how incidentally my first supercar was a Porsche. And that, just the way he was describing it, he seemed impressed. I know now that he probably wasn't, because he wasn't really driven by that, but I thought, oh, okay, my dad's impressed by money. I hadn't at that point even thought about earning money. It wasn't on my radar. I just wanted to be successful in whatever it was I did. But okay, he seems impressed by that. So I went back into school and I started deciding that I was going to do maths, economics, accounting, computing, and then I carried that through to college, university to do economics. And during that period, I thought I'd try out I went to a hedge fund. It was the second biggest hedge fund in London at the time, called Brew and Dolphin, and a stockbroking firm called Novus Capital, both of whom offered me a job before I even went to college. This was actually when I was 17 or 18. I also got headhunted from my class at college to go and work at another brokerage. I actually can't remember the name. By my teacher, picked me out as one of the guys. He had a friend in London, and he said, "You got to hire this kid." And they phoned me up, and I said, "Do you know what? I'll think about it." Went and did some work experience in these places, got offered a job, and decided that I couldn't stand the industry, couldn't stand working for someone else, and I was already doing well on my own. Not as well as I would have done with these jobs. The potential payouts.
Well, everything's relative. Yeah.
At the time, these were looking like they were going to pay me more with the bonuses and everything else. The financial industry is lucrative, right? Didn't like the people. Thought a lot of the people in that industry were arseholes, to be completely honest. Were running on ego, purely materialistic, weren't building anything that I saw physical. Now, I understand the concept of the financial industry and why it's needed as a function of the economy, but I wanted to be more integral in actually building much more value than just trading and moving equity.
And I also think that in part, if I look back at what you shared with us, you also have a strong desire to be socially interactive.
Yes.
And financial markets are devoid of that, big time. So in order for you to fill your cup, again, subconsciously, you realize that that's not for you, that you're not going to be able to grow and develop being in a vacuum of analyzing data, so to speak. So you made that decision. So it obviously must have affected you in a way where it provided you with even more confidence. It's got to be a little bit ego boosting to be courted by these industry people, especially in light of the fact that you thought as a child, a parent pleaser, that's something your dad admired, but you made a decision not to move forward in that, right? Obviously.
100%. Actually, it was when I went to university to do economics. My dad, I think he asked me, "Did you not want to do art or is it music?" Because I think that's ultimately actually more of what he wanted me to do, because I was such a creative kid. And I realized then that maybe I had misinterpreted, because I never asked him. I just made the assumption as a kid that that's what he liked. And I think because it was completely alien to him, that world. It wasn't something that he potentially or wanted me to go down. I now know that he's not materialistic driven and loves he would have loved me to be an artist or a musician or a sportsman. And it wasn't necessarily the path he wanted to go down. I think I've actually had a conversation with him recently about this, and he was absolutely shocked. He didn't even remember the conversation about the guy in the Porsche, and couldn't believe that one conversation had such an impact on me. And this is what I say to people now, is you have to be so fucking careful if people respect you and look up to you, what you tell them. And I have that same responsibility now, and as you do with people that look to you as an influential person, you have to be so careful what you say, because you can change someone's life.
Unbeknownst to you.
And I know you've had conversations with me about things that your dad has said to you and other people, that one conversation can change the entire trajectory of your life. If you're running that direction, it might just pivot you that way, and you'll end up miles apart.
And that's a really good nugget, especially in light of the fact that if they've garnered your respect and they're telling you something, the dynamics of it, it can completely shift. It happened with me. I'll be open about it. It happened with me. When I was made a poor decision with a woman and got her pregnant. So at the end of the day, it's crucial to be mindful of that. Coupled with I don't know what you want to, I don't necessarily think it's a syndrome or a stigma. How about a trait of being a parent pleaser? In that instance, it doesn't matter age-wise where you may be, you're going to have that in the back of your mind. So, and if your dad has no knowledge of that, even more so, you're going to be influenced by moving in a direction that may not be where he necessarily wanted you to be. It's crazy. What a story. So you move, obviously you move forward, you make the decision that, I'm not going to get involved in this financials. When did you decide that you wanted to move on after you got your degree, that you wanted to move into this entrepreneurial space of different types of businesses? Like you obviously set up the website, you knew how to do that, but then where was it where you developed the moxie or the confidence to go into different industries as you were moving forward in your career and life?
E-commerce, which is what I built most of my wealth from initially, selling online, we were selling lighting, is one of the best businesses you can do if you get good at it, to fortify you with the skill set to be able to handle any business. Because if you think about it, I was running an e-commerce business with a physical warehouse. We stocked it, we weren't drop shipping. And I was also importing products from China. So if you think about it from the ground up, I had to build a digital website. I had to understand how to market through paid advertising and organic advertising. I had to understand product placement and how to take photos and put them online. I had to understand copywriting. I understand building and running a website. I had to understand team management with regards to customer service, logistics, ordering, product manufacturing, import, dispatch, stock handling, margins, accounts. Everything is learned when you do e-commerce. And when I realized what that is, I fucking loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I loved all the interactions with different businesses. I was dealing with suppliers and customer service and handling the staff management. And it gave me a very good base understanding of business from a holistic approach, a macro approach. I touched every part of business in that industry, which then I fell in love with marketing. I love the digital marketing side of business. So for me, if you think about what I did, I went to China with a product idea. I had the concept. I went to the factories. I spoke with them, got it designed, got the prototypes, figured out the costings, got it shipped over, took product photos, created the description for it.
What age about
this? Was 21. Put it online, and then had someone part with their hard-earned money for that thing that I created from scratch, and I was hooked. For me, that was such an empowering feeling that
proof of concept.
Honestly, to be able to do that, where you've gone, I've done all of this, and someone's given me their money.
The entire revenue cycle.
The whole thing. I was like, I fucking love business. I absolutely love it. And that then, the marketing side more so than anything, the psychology, the mental chess pieces of getting someone to go, yeah, I want that thing, through having never seen you, never knowing the brand, never having touched the product before, getting someone to then go, well, probably for most people, the most valuable thing they have in their life is money, to then give you that for that thing. And that was that part that I loved. So then I got into the marketing side of things, where I started actually doing marketing for other people. I ended up marketing for Harrods, some massive manufacturing companies, digital companies, social media agencies, everything. And that gave me the bug, because then I was marketing for loads of different industries and learning about all of them and how it works. But ultimately, what I figured it boiled down to was, if someone has a problem, I've got a legal case that needs sorting. You go, I'm Keith. I can help you with that. I'm a lawyer. The reason they don't hire you straight off the bat is because they don't trust you enough to be able to implement a solution to that problem. And then all you do as a marketer is, what I do is shrink the distrust gap. Through the marketing and the story that you tell and you put out, you can shrink the distrust gap enough so they trust you enough that you are able to solve the solution to their problem, and then they hire you. So that's why referrals work so well, because the trust is built immediately. Because if you trust that person that's saying that person's good,
vouching,
it works. That's why word of mouth is so powerful, and that's why cold marketing or outreach or push marketing is much harder. And that's what I love. I fell in love with that, which then gave me this base of, I like to build businesses. And that's how that all came about.
Well, your experiences through the China experience, travels, and learning every single facet of a particular industry, and then the revenue cycle associated with it, with proof of product, instills confidence in you to go to different industries, and allows you to recognize deficits within subject matter experts in those particular fields. In other words, you have this quick efficiency in your mind to recognize and assess businesses and where there could be weak links based on your experience, because you're not so linear in your approach. You see the bigger picture because you've done it. Mm-hmm. And see, that's such a crucial piece to what entrepreneurs, I think, and successful business people may miss. That you got to get your hands dirty in other areas of a particular business to have an understanding of how the links of all the chain work. You can't just be a subject matter expert in one particular area and think you're going to fix a problem. It's like you're not seeing, there may be, the boat can have a bunch of holes and you only see one and you plug one. But if you have the background of understanding all the mechanics and mechanisms of the particular business, you're better suited to counsel, advise. And that, in a way, kind of segued you into mentorship, didn't it? Mm-hmm. In which Absolutely. You're highly successful in doing now.
Mentorship is the best thing in the world. So for me, the mentorship came off the back of actually my wife, and I'm skipping a step here.
Well, we're going to get into that.
We'll get into that. Okay, so love business, and you're 100% right. Any business owner that's looking to be good at what they do needs to have at least a base understanding of how the whole business works from top to bottom. And that, for one, enables you to have an understanding of the systems that need to be in place to make that thing work. It also enables you to understand what you enjoy out of that business too. I'm a big believer in entrepreneurship, that we can build the life that we want. And no one should sit there and tell you how to run your business. Yes, there's optimal ways of you being deployed within your business to make a certain amount with regards to your financial growth. But if you love a certain aspect of your business, as an entrepreneur, you can decide to do that and hire someone else to maybe do the higher return on investment part of it. And that's great. You might not earn as much money, but you'll live a damn sight of a better life. That's okay. So what you can do is you can build the business up and say, okay, what about this business do I enjoy? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What do I need to delegate out? And then how should that thing run? And that is ultimately how I look at business. And I love mentorship. And I got into mentorship because my wife's a doctor. And she used to come home every single day, and I actually felt like a piece of shit, because I would sit there and she'd go, how's your day been, Elliot? And I'd be like, oh, it's been great. We've earned this company 10% on increase in revenue this year. They've gone up like 30 million in revenue. Great. What did they say? Oh, well, yeah, great. The KPI for next year is 15. There was no real fulfillment from it. Yeah, I did well. I got a pat on the back and I was earning good money. Fantastic. I said, what do you do today, babe? She went, I saved this guy's life. This happened. And, she wasn't earning a lot of money because the NHS pays like shit in the UK. The salary for doctors here is abysmal. But what I realized was that she was actually really helping people. I felt that way. And I felt a big void in my stomach with regards to my business that I was doing. I was earning a lot of money, but once again, I felt a bit more like the financial industry again, where it was all about money and not about really helping people at the core. So the mentorship came around where I started actually giving some consultation to some friends of mine that were in the fitness space and helping them build their business. And fast forwarding a little bit, I've had mentees now where they've phoned me up crying at night because they'd just been to the supermarket, and it's the first time in their entire life where they didn't have to check the price tag on things to be able to buy what they wanted. And although they may have only gone from debt to, say, £1,500 a month,
all relative in there.
It felt better helping someone do that than it helped make a company 20 million. And I was like, this is what I love. And I want to do more of this.
You do realize what you did there. You do realize that from what we've talked about earlier on the podcast to where you are now, you are again nurturing the social aspect of your personality in taking care of someone, whether that mentee, whatever you want to call them, and helping them through life is what you're doing. And that fills your cup, because you figured out that the number game in a financial circumstance, and I run into this as well in my industry, earlier years when I represented institutions, whether it be an insurance company or a corporation, I didn't get necessarily the fulfillment in winning or getting a proper adjudication on their behalf as I did with people. And I'm very fortunate now that some of my I call them institutional clients, but they're family-owned businesses. So I have more of a it works on me as well, the protective aspect of taking care of them. It's personalized more so than an institution itself. And so the same thing with you, I think, transcended to this mentorship where it's in a way giving back, but that's not necessarily you're not doing it conscientiously to say, hey, look what I just did. It's you're actually doing it to gain the fulfillment of an individual in elevating their life, which is incredible to me. It's just incredible, and that in and of itself, being a passionate world that you're in, allows you to even grow more and helps you even build more wealth because you're doing what you love and you're filling a need. You found a niche, obviously, in this mentorship, and it's incredible how it became a very, let's just say, it's profitable for you, but a huge part of your business model, right? I mean, this mentorship is an incredible business model under your Limitless badge.
Absolutely. Limitless for me is now everything, because I realize it's what gets me out of bed. It makes me want to work. I do well. I mean, I have supercars, I live in a beautiful house, I have a wonderful family. I have everything I could ever want or need. And for me, life is about more than that. And I believe, and I will say this right now, that some people are destined to help a lot of people. And whether or not it is my obligation to help those people, I know I can. And I'm going to have an enormous impact on the planet. I will say it right now. Everything I'm now doing is to long-term help as many people as possible financially and physically with their health, from a health perspective. I have the ability, and I have the model, I have the blueprint, I have the framework for this to happen. I have a 10-year plan to get to $1 billion. With that billion, it's not from a financial perspective. I know what I can then shift into from a health perspective, the healthcare perspective. I have big plans, which then comes from this desire to help. Now, whether or not that's been a burden on my life, I don't care, because I believe as a good human being, I'm not religious. I don't believe in God. What I believe in is if you're a good person, you leave this world as a net positive. And some people have the gift to be able to help more people than others. And I believe that I have that gift. I know I have that gift. And I'm going to do everything in my power to help as many people as I can. I'm not a charity either. I'm going to make a shitload of money doing it.
Sure.
But I'm going to be making it in a way that gives so much value to the world that I can leave this place happy. That's my goal. That will happen.
So I think there's a sense of spirituality in you. When you say you don't believe in God, I mean, that could be a controversial subject to some people, one way or the other. But for purposes of our discussion and where you are with regard to your life, I think it's a spiritual understanding of what you're doing. And I think that, I don't think it's something that should be judged. I think it's people say they believe in God and they treat people like crap and they're miserable about things.
I love the concepts of like the Quran, the Bible, the preachings of religion, and I wholeheartedly believe them. And I believe that we should be good humans and we should treat others how we want to be treated, and we should always try to empower and lift people up and help people where possible. If you have the ability, then I believe that you should. And I believe all of those things. I just don't necessarily believe in an entity, but whether that be spiritual, yeah, fine. And I know that that's what I want to do. And if that takes its toll on me, I don't even care because that's my purpose. I feel like I have a purpose.
Yeah.
That's my purpose, and that makes me happy.
Love it. I love it. We've had you on talking a lot about your growth and your successes. Obviously, part of the podcast, we talk about relationships, we talk about partnerships, we talk about exercise, fitness, we talk about so many of the other variables that make someone who they are, and are areas that don't get focused on or discussed, because I think as a society what happens, we tend to award somebody who has things, or somebody who has had successes, and it gets defined by their bank account, or gets defined by, you know, how many supercars they may have, what type of properties they may own, what type of movies they may be in, all what I believe to be such real trite, empty awards. I am blessed. Obviously, you know my wife. We actually became friends through our wives across the pond. But tell me a little bit about the journey in your personal life with regard to your wife, who's a doctor, who I'm sure a lot of people weren't even aware of. But how has it been in your journey of entrepreneurship, balancing that, you're a father as well, balancing that within your relationship?
As I told you before, I'm a massively forward thinker. The world to me is like a chessboard, and there's multiple moves ahead. I realized very early on that the person you pick is the most important person in your life. It's the biggest and most important decision you can make, especially as someone that needs to give a lot of impact to become very successful. Your partner can make or break that. So for me, I knew from day one, whoever I married had to be 100% the right person, or I wouldn't marry someone. And I am absolutely blessed to have found my wife, because as with lots of things in life, I've experienced other relationships and realized that they weren't what I was looking for. I actually go back a little bit, because this is a very controversial thing. So for me, I've been in relationships from lust. I've been in relationships from other people's opinions and social pressures. And I realized that they weren't going to be right for me in terms of the lifestyle that I've got and the goals that I've got, because I've had these goals for a long time. They're lofty goals. And I know that you need a team to hit those things. So I'm very selfish in that respect. So prior to meeting my wife, I had basically a tick list, the same way you would do when you're hiring an employee. And I was clinical about who I was going to be with next. If that was going to be my long-term partner, it was more practical. It was all practical. I met her through a dating app, and we got talking, but I'm straight away diving into family values, family health, how she conducts her own business, what her aspirations are, what her ethics are, what her morals are.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you for a second, because you talked about other issues, and I went through the same thing. Lust, pleasing somebody else. Did you have an epiphany moment in which you wanted to have a checklist? Did you have your fun and decide, okay, now I'm ready? Or were you always looking to have your checklist? And checklist is probably demeans the relationship by saying just checklist. In your mind, you knew there were points that you wanted in this person that were non-negotiable, period. You had to have these things. But did you go through life in your relationships with everyone you met trying to meet that? Or
No.
Did you have some fun first?
I had some fun. I went through life with in my opinion, the misunderstanding that your domestic life is different from your commercial life, and that love and emotions and building or finding a partner can be done just by fluke.
Which most people think, correct? Which most people do.
And going through enough bad relationships to suddenly realize that I can't approach my domestic life the same way, or my emotional, my relationships the same way I do, they need to be approached the same way I do business. It needs to be clinical, it needs to be thought out, it needs to be structured. So then I can have everything that I was doing in life that was successful was pre-planned and thought out. It was premeditated. Everything that wasn't being successful in my life wasn't. Well, People don't like this because it takes the romanticism out of a relationship. But romanticism doesn't last if you pick the wrong person.
Absolutely.
So I thought, well, I'll tell you what, I'll do what I always do with everything else in my life, is plan it out to the T, know exactly what I want and why, find that thing, and then the romanticism and relationship will blossom off the back of it because the foundation will be correct. And that's what I did with my wife. I found out all of those things from the get-go, set expectations, and we formed, over time, the best relationship I've ever had.
And it has helped you even more so.
I would not be where I am today without her.
Yeah.
I would still be successful, and we have this,
Sure.
she likes to prod me with that. Yeah, you wouldn't be where I am without me. And I say, yeah, I would. And she winds her up, but I know I wouldn't. She brings a lot to the table.
We talked offline about my experiences, and for our viewers and listeners who may not know this, you're in your very young 30s. I am in my approaching 60s. And we're kind of kindred spirits, which people would not even understand. However, you fortunately you've like lived 30 years in a 10-year span, basically. I made some very poor decisions, and I shared with you the fact that emotionally, as you discussed earlier about people in relationships who are successful in a business setting in their career, do not take the time to be as methodical in their personal life, do not take the time to really find the right person foundationally that has the same values and aspires to have a life that you may have. And for me, it wasn't until I was in my mid-40s that I was able to find my wife. But I had a point of reference over the years of poor decision making that helped me not only recognize that my wife that I ended up falling in love with and being with was right for me because of all the right reasons. I was able to ensure by my behavior, I was going to make sure that I covet that particular relationship and allow that relationship to grow, because I knew the negative. I knew I had a point of reference of all the things I didn't want in a relationship. So I knew, and internally too, it's not just I'm going to blame it on the individual who I had chosen who was not for me. I had to grow also as part of it, and I think we still continue to grow. But I will say, I will echo your comments. But for my wife, I know for me personally, maybe I could still be a lawyer, maybe I could still be practicing and making money, whatever I'm doing, but I would never be at the place I am now, not only monetarily, but from an emotional perspective and in a happiness perspective of my life. And the desire to even grow, even like I said, this podcast, the decisions that I've made with the support of a spouse, of a partner who elevates you, you can go for that $10 billion grab without any issue. You can go for whatever you want to do because you have that individual to help you. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. Now, I know I've gone over this a lot. You've taken this particular theme, and we talk about this. You and I talk about this a lot, but you've taken this theme to other places with regard to mentorship, haven't you? Where what I mean is that you've noticed in working with very successful people that there are instances in which their life is a muck, unbeknownst to them in the decision making that they made with their significant other.
Yeah, so to give you a story, I recently started mentoring a very successful chap, arguably worth $1 billion. I mean, give or take, that level. And the conversations we've been having initially started with business strategy, but quite quickly shifted after he came to view my house. He saw my lifestyle and saw my foundations to how he could actually better progress through his relationships, because through all of his financial successes, the one thing he never managed to fix was his home life. And that was always his biggest burden, always his biggest bottleneck. Now, he knows that should he be able to fix that now, he'll be infinitely more successful and infinitely happier. One thing I will say, actually, as an aside just from this, is that when people pick role models, it's so easy to look at someone's exterior, look at their materialistic wealth, look at their business success. However, what we really need to be mindful of is how do they live and how happy is that person, how balanced is that person? Because there's so much more to life than just one element. And I've made this mistake in the past where I will look at someone and try and be just like them. It might be a bodybuilder, it might be an entrepreneur. And what I didn't realize is that bodybuilder has no friends, he has no family, he has no financial wealth. I look at a successful entrepreneur, he has no family, he has poor relationships with his kids or doesn't have any kids, he has a broken relationship at home, he has depression and this, that, and the other, but he has a fantastic financial life. Find people that embody a lifestyle that you want to live, not just one element of that thing. And what I'm finding out now is even with hyper successful people that are financially killing it, tend to be lacking somewhere. And that's always worth remembering and trying to set KPIs for your life, benchmarks for your life that don't just dictate success and quantify success purely on financial status. Look at, is my relationship progressing? Am I learning? Am I happy? One thing that breaks my heart from mentoring is that I work with a lot of really hungry, driven people, and they predicate their successes based on the benchmark of others that they're looking at. And like I said, if you look at your idols and your heroes, 9 times out of 10, they are massively imbalanced. And if you actually lived their life, you wouldn't be happy because they're missing so many elements to life that I would class as success. And it's not just financial. So what I try to get people to do is, and I do this myself, when you look at yourself at the end of the month and you introspectively think about whether or not you've made progress, don't just fucking look at your bank balance. Did you improve as a husband, a wife, a father, a brother, a son, a daughter? Did you learn? Did you improve your knowledge, your skill base, so that you can give more value to people, improve your business, improve your life? Did you have a fulfilled month? Did you experience new things? Did you live? And holistically look at all of those variables to decide whether or not you made a step forward. Because I speak to so many people, and yeah, they might not have seen great improvements or may have even gone backwards in their bank balance. And this has happened to me in my life. When I've been really working on my relationship and myself as a parent, yeah, I don't always move forward with my business. Sometimes it goes backwards. But I look at it as a net positive because my other 3 variables went forward because I was focusing on those. And I'm really comfortable with that. And society has us so blinkered towards materialistic growth because it fuels the cogs of the economy. They don't give a shit about your happiness, your health, or your fulfillment. And if we grasp these concepts, we will live a much more balanced, happier life. Now, I'm not a balanced person per se, and I do believe in seasons, and we need to have focus on finances sometimes. We need to have focus on family and relationships other times, and other variables in your life. But it's okay if your bank balance doesn't always improve. It doesn't necessarily mean you're not being successful. And that concept just is not imparted on enough people. It's completely untalked about in society. And if more people adopted that, they'd be a lot happier.
Absolutely. You nailed it. I think that unfortunately, men are essentially judged based on the bank account. Mm-hmm. That's it. And unfortunately, women encourage the behavior. I don't say all women, but some women encourage that because that's what they value. They value this plastic, emotionless, what you can get me, a relationship. And the essence of life, and unfortunately, for me, fortunately, I was blessed to be able to I'm still learning, but figure out a lot of this before I was done with my life, that holistically, happiness in life requires balance, and it requires the ability to be able to focus on multiple things and not solely your bank account. And you can't define, as a man, you cannot define yourself solely in one particular area. Because I will state, I've seen this where society will award an individual for being solely a father, stay-at-home dad, just solely stay-at-home dad, and that'll make you happy. Society, I think, has a tendency to want to put us in buckets, right? They want to put us, everything's got to be black and white. You must be this way, you must be this way, you must be this way. And whatever wave comes across, then all of a sudden things shift in a different direction. But if we look at something holistically and we move forward, and as you brought up, maybe you're not going to gain in one particular area, one bar, but that other bar of life, whether it be you saw your kids' football game, you did something else. Well, you know what? That was important, and that's part of my whole big picture of being the man or the person that I want to be as I continue on in this journey of life.
If you want to be a real man, a real high value man, and all you do currently is earn money, then you're a joke. A real man to me is someone that can
You're an ATM machine.
Someone that can do it all. Someone that has the ability to be a good human being, be a good parent, turn up and still go to work and work your bollocks off, because you still need to earn money. You still need to provide for your family. You need to go and hunt bears. You got to put food on the table. Then you got to be a loving, caring husband. You then got to be a caring lead and role model and leader for your kids. You've then got to be a good person in society and also live a good life. That for me is a high value man. And that for me, I have a tremendous amount of respect for. And anyone that has those traits in them, you're one of them. I have an affinity to look at them and I'll benchmark them, regardless of whether or not you're a billionaire, you're very successful. Yeah, there's richer men out there, but I'd much rather be you. And I'm going to benchmark that. And men should definitely focus on that more, and women should want that from a man too.
Absolutely.
And stop putting pressure on one variable.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me go to another topic that is dear to both of our hearts. Again, we didn't even realize it was when we initially met, but that's exercise and fitness and working out as part of our lifestyle. And the what I believe to be crucial to one's existence and mindful of that whole aggregate that we've discussed holistically, in order to be that individual, is taking care of your health and making sure that, well, you want to live a long life, obviously, but also filling your cup up in a way that you're able to provide and do all the things that you want to do on behalf of your family and on behalf of yourself. So how has exercise and fitness influenced you in your life?
Exercise and fitness first came off the back of the fact that, one, I love sports, and secondly, I told you I was a highly competitive person, still am. And I thrived off the fact that I could be in better shape with successful businesses than guys that focus either on their fitness or their business. And I used to have this saying, I hobby harder than you work.
I love that.
So I could be more successful in my hobbies than you work. And for me, I've always believed in this idea of a hybrid entrepreneur. And this encompasses that whole notion
let me take that. Hybrid entrepreneur. Okay,
yeah.
go.
Which encompasses this whole thing of like, we're not just one dimensional. As a high value man and a successful entrepreneur, I need to be in shape. There's no excuse to be a fat slob. I could do both. And not only going to be in shape, I want to be in better shape than people that do that for a living. And that was what I really got a kick off of. I was going to the gym 2 hours a day. I was working my ass off while at university getting a degree, while also running 2 companies, while also having a relationship at university, while also trying to do the social scene. And I love the idea that I could do all of those things, and I think you can. I think if people don't, they're lazy. And that's now transitioned into, I've now since had kids and realized that actually, aside from all the aesthetics and the facade, because I really gave a shit about what people thought of me through my 20s, which was a massive hindrance to me. I've now dropped that. My insecurities have lessened massively. I now have 2 wonderful boys who I now need to provide for and be a fucking loving and energetic father for, and I need to be around to support them, because there's no point in me dropping dead through stress from work or over pushing bodybuilding or being unhealthy. That's not a good father either. I need to be here for a long time, supportive financially and also mentally, physically, in every aspect. And the biggest proponent of me being able to do that for the longest time period is my health. So now I have my body serve me than me serve my body, which I didn't used to do. I now realize that for me to be able to crank out work and do all of these things, I need to have my health. Because without that, I won't have the energy, I won't have the drive, I won't have the longevity in it. So health is everything. And it doesn't hurt to look good naked.
For sure. I think that fitness, exercise, and health transcends an individual in so many areas. It instills confidence in an individual. It emits to others a discipline where they will, right off the bat, I know for myself personally, and this isn't egocentric, I walk into a room, I'm dressed appropriately, they can see that I am in shape, they can see I care. So I believe before I open my mouth, I have garnered attention. If not credibility, I've garnered attention. And they're going to listen because they see that. I also believe that in any field you may be particularly in, that if you're presenting in a way in which you're emitting this together, the way you look and the way you're acting, they're going to see that. But in general, with regard to whatever goals you may have moving forward in life, the money you may want to make, all these other things, it means nothing if you don't have your health. And so many people don't get that. And I see on Instagram and all these social platforms, what I tend to notice now is that very successful people are figuring this out later. And so I see them so linear on one particular area, and whether it's commercial real estate, whatever particular field they're in, and you can see their shape, and then you could tell they don't take care of themselves. And then for whatever reason, then the light clicks on for them. Could be later in life, whatever. And now they're all of a sudden going down this fitness path. They've decided, okay, now my life and fitness is more important. Wouldn't it be nice to be a 25, 30-year-old taking the road that is holistic moving forward? And if we can get people to listen to us and understand that that should be the goal going forward, this holistic approach, I think they would have a longevity and have a much more balanced life.
Quickly going back to something you said about how people define or perceive you when you're in shape. I used to hire predicated on the fact that the guys that were hiring went to the gym. So take Jake, the videographer, for example, right? I was interested in hiring him initially because he put himself forward for the videography role that I had. And the reason, and the biggest reason I said yes, is because I saw his work ethic in the gym and I saw his physique. You can take someone who's financially successful, but not know their work ethic and drive. But I know for goddamn sure that someone that's in shape can do it. So I knew they had the raw minerals, at the very least, to be able to make sacrifices, go through pain and push. And as an employer, as another man that was looking for someone to bring onto my team, that was a massive sign to me that at least they have the ability to do that, because most humans don't. As soon as something gets painful in life, they give up and quit. So you're telling everyone around you, you're signaling to everyone around you that you're potentially going to do business with or do anything in life, that at least you have those raw traits, which is very rare. So just showing up in shape puts you at a massive advantage, because every other human being out there goes, well, I don't know anything else about this guy, but he can at least go through that. And that's a massive signal and huge. And to your second point, belief structures are everything, and society unfortunately has led us to believe once again that we either need to be in shape or we need to be successfully financial, and you can't do both. Fuck that. Get rid of that right now. Is that fact? No, it's not. There's a lot of people that do both. It's also a laziness. Like I said, that's a lot of people making excuses that they can't do both. And I hear it all the time.
Yeah, I do too.
And as soon as they say it to me, I'm like, you're lazy.
Yeah.
And I can say it because I'm not that person.
Yeah.
Man, fuck up.
Yep. I totally agree. Who could, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, anything, you have just made a conscious decision. You don't want to deal with it. You're too lazy. You don't want to prioritize it. I get it all the time. I get it in my age. I get it to the point like, well, what do you mean? Why are you going to your son's like, why are you going to the gym? They view it as it's something like as a negative. And I don't know if society puts that in place as well, that it's actually a negative when it's not a negative.
It's a negative because the people that are making it a negative are imposing their own insecurities about the fact they don't want to do it on you. So what I will say about human beings as a whole is they'll always, not always, but the majority of human beings will belittle anything that you do that they know they should be doing themselves and aren't. So they will be happy to derail you from doing those things and frame it like it's negative because they don't have the mental capacity, willpower, drive, and work ethic to be able to do it themselves, and will therefore tell you it's not a good thing.
Well, it's also that is an excellent point, because the road to entrepreneurship as well, and the road to owning your own business as well, is full of the naysayers.
Shouldn't work at the weekends, shouldn't talk about work over the dinner table, should take more holidays. All these things, because they see you becoming more successful, they see you becoming more financially wealthy, elevating, and they can't stand it. All you hear is, don't do that. Stop doing that. It's not good for you. Listen to people that, like I said, find role models that have the balance and the lifestyle that you want to achieve. Listen to them. They'll tell you the truth. Go to podcasts like this. Find other people that have those things and listen to them and shut all the noise off, because it's bullshit. It's crabs in a bucket. Everyone's trying to pull you down.
That's so true, Elliot. It's so true. We've hit on some really great points. I'm so happy that we were able to talk about these things. It's just incredible. I love it. Let me bring up one other point that I talk about a lot. And I think that some people have a tendency to be very fearful of judgment as they move forward in life. And what I mean by that in part is they may have made poor decisions throughout their lives growing up, or even as young adults or adults, or even in their 30s or 40s or 50s, wherever they may be. And it's this fear of judgment of others that seems to paralyze them for whatever reason. And for whatever reason, they have this fear of not being able to get out of their own way because of it. And one of the discussion points that I like to bring up is talking about diluting and minimizing that fear by leaning into it and accepting the fact that whatever occurred in the past will not define you moving forward in the future. And we need to be able to let go of some things. It doesn't mean we won't forget about the experiences we've had, but learn from those experiences to move forward. Do you run into this theme or these issues a lot in your mentorship among business owners or people that you're working with?
Unbelievable, an unbelievable amount. Most people are so fearful of, like you say, judgment. So the big crux of this is giving a shit what other people think. There's a reason most people won't get on social media and post a video of them talking to the camera. They'll look at it and critique the hell out of themselves, not because they don't like how they look, they're worried about how other people will think that they look. And it's the fear of judgment on every aspect of life, whether that be, which I think also more so boils down more to the fear of failure or perceived failure. And that is the biggest crippling thing. Most people never take action because they're so worried about failing, not because they're worried about the failure, they're worried about the perception or being perceived to be a failure, and the pain and embarrassment that will bring. If they're on a vacuum and they're on an island on their own, they wouldn't mind building a raft that then went out and and crashed and then had to go and build another one because no one's there to see it. They'll keep going till they get off the island, whereas everyone else will die of dehydration because they're worried about, well, fear of failure will stay on the island and dehydrate and die. Think about if people are out there and they really are worried or not moving forward, you have to introspectively figure out, is it really something that it's not because you want to do, or is it really because of the opinions of others that are holding you back and the fear of failing and having them judge you? So many people don't do what they really want to do, and this is what pains me the most. I speak to so many people that know there's more to life. They're desperate for something else, but are so fearful of their parents' judgment or their friends, their family, whatever it may be, for really, really ridiculous reasons they've never actually thought through properly, won't then take the leap, won't take the steps because they're petrified of that. And I will say this, become ruthless in cultivating your network, because the best way to step away from that and move out of that fear of judgment is don't be judged by people that have any negative ill feelings towards you, because this is the problem with society. We have the average person doesn't want to see you succeed. The average person is also fearful. The average person, even if your parents, they might not necessarily they have your best interests at heart and might want to see you succeed, but they're so fearful themselves, they don't want you to try and fail for whatever reason. And what I've done is, because I had that, and I never struggled to move forward, but I battled with the thought process of how am I going to deal with failure if this happens, and it was always an anxiety of mine. Cut everyone out that doesn't have supportive thoughts towards you. Just have people in your corner, like you and I have conversations. And you talked about going on in fact, I encourage you to go on the podcast. Whereas most people would say, well, Keith, what if people perceive you slightly oddly?
Absolutely.
In your law firm? You're a professional man. You can't talk about your personal life and your relationships and the fact that you had divorces. How is that going to come across in a commercial sense? What if the insurance companies you're working for then drop you? I'm sure you had that, right?
Absolutely.
Where a friend like me who wants to see your best interests at heart, saw that you're passionate about that, will push you and encourage you. And when you have those fears and those other people seeping in, will then help you push that out again. Because it's natural to have those emotions. It's natural to have fear of failure, because that's what keeps us alive, because that's why we don't jump off a roof and hope that we survive. It's a good thing that we have those things, but we need people to help us at least move forward, because if you don't at least try, you'll never know. And also, you can't fail if you don't quit. You can try something over and over again until it works. That's not defined as failure. You have to have a clear definition of failure as well. You doing something over and over again 300 times until it works isn't failure. It just took a little while for me to get it right. You doing it once and stopping is failure.
Absolutely. And the other piece to it that's so crucial is that you will grow as a human being personally by moving through that barrier, by making the decision to move forward. And the anticipation of making that decision to move forward and the anxiety associated with that is generally more difficult than the actual task of passing through that door. Because once you pass through that door, and once you're able to have proof and concept, so to speak, that you can do it, it is the most defining moment of your existence, in that you have been able to grow personally. And what's life about, right? We have to grow. We can't be static with regard to our existence. What a shame of a wasted life to just sit and be static in life. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not judging people who are happy with their status quo. I just don't want to be one of those people, period. And I don't think people who are listening to our podcast want to be those people. I think they need words of encouragement and help and suggestions to help them move forward to a better place. And I agree with you 100% with regard to the toxicity associated with the naysayers, and surrounding yourself not only with people who, you don't want yes people, you don't want sycophants, but you do want people who are supportive of whatever you're choosing to do, because you're not going to hurt, you're not hurting yourself or hurting anybody, that you're choosing to move in a positive direction. And you also want to surround yourself, which goes into a whole other topic, of putting yourself in a situation where you have people who are elevating you, people who are making you grow and learn more so that you can further expedite your growth as a human being and as a person. Rather than being, number one in a group of 100, I rather work my way up and learn from these people and then move to different areas of my life with other individuals. That to me, segues into other layers of personal growth and working through judgment.
What I will say is a big concept that I believe in wholeheartedly is that your life can be however you want to create it. I believe that we've all been put on this planet for whatever purpose that may be, whether religious or not, and you should do what makes you happy without the judgment of others. And the great thing about the world we live in today is there's more opportunity than ever. We have the internet, we have low barriers to entry to setting up a business, we have multiple jobs, we can travel at the drop of a hat to any country on the planet. Within reason, obviously I know there's some countries that can't and some people that aren't as privileged as us, but for most people watching this podcast, they've got a computer, they've got a mobile phone, they've got an internet connection. You're in that one of very lucky few people that can do those things. And all you need to do is understand the rules of the game, be around people that help you build a skill set and belief system that enables you to play the game as you want, and you can build any life for yourself that you conceive. And I want to empower more people with this notion that it's not fixed. The belief systems that you've been told and the life that you've been told you have to live, you don't. It's completely within your power. When you take accountability for everything within your life, who you hang around, what you believe, what you do, your health, your financial status, your relationship status, when that's in your power, you then have control. And when you have control, you can create things. So take accountability for everything. Start seeking people that help you with that belief system, would help you with those skills. There's a lot of them out there. You might not have them physically or geographically around you, but they're out there on the internet. They're everywhere.
Well, I'm going to plug immediately what you're doing now that you so graciously invited me. You're doing the huddle. And you're doing the huddle, which is free. Why don't you just briefly, as we wind down here, talk a little bit about the huddle and the concept?
So as I said, the world is a game, the way I see it. And within it, we have players like you and I, and we have NPCs, non-player characters that are set on repeat, programmed by the system, things that they've been told from kids that they believe to be a certain way, and they wake up every single day on repeat. Not ever growing because they don't see that there's an opportunity outside of that, they just are. And there's a lot of people now, like possibly the people watching this podcast and other people out there that know that there's more, but don't know how to get there. We call them losties. And what the huddle is a group of people that get on every Monday morning at 7 a.m.
UK time right now.
We're going to do a US one.
The US is going to come.
Where all we do is discuss these topics. And everyone on there is either a player or someone that's trying to become a player and is super supportive, is giving help, advice, their experiences of having the same hurdles that you're stuck with. Might be that belief system that you can't move forward, that fear of judgment. It might be those, and we discuss those, we share wins, it's positive. It's the antithesis of what you see on the news. You'll leave there feeling positive and empowered, and also build a network of people, because we will share our social media on there, we will speak to one another. We're not selling anything. All we're selling is a better life. Not financially, we're just selling a great network of people, great positivity, and like-minded individuals that can support one another if you don't necessarily have that available in your
I love it. I was on it. I love it. We're gonna we had imposter syndrome. We're gonna put a link on the website to that for anybody who may be interested in it as well, who are watching the podcast. But I think it's a wonderful tool for people. I think it's an incredible opportunity for people to grow, for people to just listen. And you don't have to speak. That's the other part about it. You can sit there and listen. And there are some individuals who have some really nice things to talk about and provide some guidance to people at all different levels, right? At all different levels.
So I try and bring as many people on from different walks of life as possible, because it's similar concepts, but when you can resonate with a particular story, it helps to see if it's something that you've been experiencing yourself. Just discussing a general topic is not always something that you can get behind, but when you hear it in the context of your life through someone else that's had a similar experience, it really does help. And by the way, I've built this not for people that are entrepreneurs, not just for people that are just trying to become financially successful. It's a mindset. You can be unemployed, you can be employed, you can be part of this, whatever. All I care is that you are of a similar mindset to us, because being rich, in my mind, isn't a financial status, it's a mindset. And I just want people that have that mindset of helping others, supporting, positivity, you can build the life that you want. Trying to create a net benefit for society and those around them, and being a good supportive figure. And that's what it's all about.
And it's a half hour.
It's half an hour.
It's a half hour of your time in your life. It's early in the morning to get you going in the UK to start. And it's something that I think is incredible. And it's grown tenfold, hasn't it? It's taken off.
It's going crazy, which I'm really happy about, but I'm not surprised because people are crying out for it, because there's so many people like you, potentially people watching this right now, that feel so alone, that feel like there's no one that understands them, that feels like everyone around them is an enemy. And it's a refuge for these people, and it's a place where they can be themselves and actually feel a lot better about themselves, and actually know that they're not an alien, that they're not necessarily crazy, and have support to do those things. And there is people out there just like you. And that's the amazing thing about it. And we will do one in America for American time zones very soon as well.
That's great. That's great. Well, I want to thank you so much for this. This has been incredible. Thank you for inviting me in your home to do this
Your
podcast. I'm family. I love it. I'm so thankful of it. I really appreciate the time you've taken. I think you've shared incredible, what I call these knowledge nuggets regarding so many different areas that we covered. And I hope everybody enjoyed this podcast. I hope everybody will like and subscribe, send us some DMs, and remember, everyone, keep it pro to pro.
Cheers.
That's all for today's episode of Pro to Pro. I hope you enjoyed hearing from our guests and gained some valuable insights into the world of entrepreneurship. Like and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest episodes. And don't forget to follow us on social media. Thanks for watching and listening. And remember to keep it pro to pro.